Hi friends, welcome back to Dispatch Tea and Therapy. It's No Filter Friday, the day that we are going to peel back the layers and dive into the issues that hit close to home. Today we're talking about something that lives at the messy, beautiful, and sometimes profoundly uncomfortable intersection of psychology, pain, and laughter. I'm talking about dark humor. That's why he's here. He's very interested in dark humor. Let's be clear about the kind of dark humor I'm talking about. It's not actually this kind. It's not, haha, life is so silly. It's not Halloween humor. This is the kind that shows up when your soul is splintered and somehow is still functioning. The kind that doesn't come from cruelty. It comes from the need to stay human in the face of inhumanity. It's not always polite. It's rarely pretty, but it's real. And for many of us, it's necessary. Let me give you an example. One of my coworkers once told me, dark humor is like food. Not everyone gets it. And if that hits you like it did me, like a punch to the gut, that's the point. It's painful and we shy away from it. We don't want to deal with it. That's too dark, too far. But it's painful because it's also true. We're talking Cards Against Humanity levels of wrong, Bad Therapist the Card Game wrong, and yes, I own both. It's the kind of humor that makes you check your own pulse afterward and ask, did I really just laugh at that? Yes, you did. And it might have just saved your sanity. I remember a domestic violence call I took many years ago when I was still dispatching, but I was taking call receiver calls overflow. And ask anybody if you want to hear dispatchers call receive. You probably do, but no, you don't. At any rate, this man was yelling that his girlfriend was a straight up witch. Now, I'm trying to get a description. I'm trying to get her name, details for officers who are getting ready to show up. But all he would do was continue to repeat, she's a witch. I'm telling you, she's a straight up witch. I think he might have actually believed that she was a witch with powers, and maybe he was actually afraid of her. I can't speak to that. However, finally, after several minutes of trying to redirect him, I just kind of snapped a little, and I said, sir, and I said this in a loud voice, my dispatcher voice, if you know, you know, sir, witch is not a race. What race is she? And the entire room around me exploded in laughter. Rightfully so, but I could not join them yet because I was still in it, still managing that chaos. The laughter from me would come later. That's what people on the outside of this type of environment don't understand. We're not laughing at the trauma. We're laughing despite it, because sometimes that's the only thing keeping the trauma from swallowing us whole. Dark humor is a pressure valve in dispatch, EMS, military, trauma counseling, any high stakes environment. It's not really a luxury, it's a survival toolkit. It's a kind of emotional alchemy that turns horror into something that we can carry. And when I say alchemy, I'm not just being poetic. Alchemy is transformation. It's turning something heavy and raw, like pain or fear, into something meaningful, something that connects, something that we can live with. But there's a line, because sometimes what looks like transformation is actually avoidance in disguise. And then we're not processing the pain, we're dodging it. That's the line I'm talking about, between coping and bypassing, between humor as a balm and humor as a shield. And the danger is that we usually don't know that we've crossed that line until we do. And then trouble follows. I've had the opportunity twice to take some Blue Courage training. If you've never heard of it, I suggest that you Google it. There's also going to be a link in my YouTube. It's geared towards first responders, and it does sort of speak mostly to cops, but there's a lot of overlay with 911. The training is amazing and very valuable. There's a lot of crossover between cops and dispatchers. But there is a particular lesson that stuck with me all these years for all the right reasons. And it's because Blue Courage is a heart-centered leadership and wellness program that doesn't just talk about tactics, it talks about soul. And the lesson that I'm talking about that hit me so hard was about losing heart. And what they talk about is how we start off with innocence, curiosity, and compassion. But over time, those can harden into cynicism, arrogance, and callousness. And all of it gets dressed up as realism, authoritative knowledge, and a thick skin. In other words, we become masters at faking it. It's called gallows humor, but sometimes it's just vicarious trauma dressed up in cleverness. Now you'll see this in shows like The Bear, BoJack Horseman, Barry, Dairy Girls, Fleabag. These are not just dark comedies. They're meditations on pain and dysfunction, trauma and healing. The jokes land because of the darkness, not in spite of it. They let us breathe. But there's still a boundary. You won't hear many jokes about toddlers in trauma, or animals being harmed, or deeply vulnerable populations. Most dark humor in these spaces targets absurdity, systems, not victims. I'm not saying that makes it right or wrong. This is not a judgment space, but it does reflect something real about those of us who use it to cope. Like I said, it's not about cruelty. It is about reclaiming just enough emotional distance to keep going. That boundary exists not because of censorship, but because of reverence. Some things are simply too sacred to twist into punchlines. And 911 professionals, we carry a lot of sacred weight. So how do we know, excuse me, sir, so pushy, dark humor doesn't let you go. How do you know when dark humor is helping you and when it's starting to hurt? Here are a few signs to check in with. If you're using humor to avoid feeling anything real, you only feel safe when you're joking and never when you're crying. The jokes start sounding cruel, even to you. You're not just laughing at the job anymore, you're laughing at people. And people you trust, friends, family, coworkers, are expressing concern. If any of that feels familiar, it doesn't mean that you're broken. It might just mean that your armor's gotten a little too tight, and maybe it's time to just loosen it a little. Compassion burnout is real and needs to be addressed before it becomes too late and something bad happens. Now, in clinical training, we're taught how to create safety for our clients, but no one really teaches us how to create safe spaces for ourselves in 911. And sometimes that just looks like leaning over after a brutal call and whispering the world's most wildly inappropriate joke to somebody who gets it. Again, that's not broken, that's human. So if your humor has ever been misunderstood, if you've ever laughed at the wrong time and questioned your soul, if you've ever said, I know this is terrible, but, and then meant it, you're not alone. You're not broken, you are processing. Dark humor doesn't mean you've lost your heart, but it might mean it's time to check in with it. So here's my invitation to you. If you've got a story to share, confessional, cringeworthy, hilarious, or healing, drop it in the comments. Send it privately if you're not comfortable with that, because this space, again, it was made for those of us who've seen some shit and survived it, and somehow still found ourselves laughing, because that's resilience. I hope you guys all have a really good day, and I hope you continue to take care of yourselves. Remember, it's a dark place out there. Dark humor is good. Just come sit by me and wear your jacket.